Oh, she's joined. Thanks, Matt. Um, um, no worries. So Jordan, do you want to kind of kick off where we were last talking about the use cases, or do you want me to give kind of an overview of what Dimitri and I and you have been working on and kind of next steps? What do you prefer?
Why don't you go ahead and then I'll jump in.
Okay, so just to rehash, we got 18.4 out, right? That was the big thing we've been focused on. Um, the last week that has been my main focus up until really yesterday. Um, and so because that, I had to put the SDLC knowledge graph as a service architecture kind of on the back burner so we can get 18.4 released, right? Jordan, you and I met, what was it, 2 weeks ago?
I think it was just over 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago
Yeah.
to go over some of the use cases. So should we link those? Let's go ahead and link those.
Yeah.
Um, I'm preparing a little bit of a summary because I'll kind of my idea is to give you guys an overview of what I've been talking about with Tim and the rest of the team and where I think we can go and then how we can kind of plan around that. Is this the use cases, right? Okay.
That's right.
Um, um, and also kind of the architecture we've been researching. But the problem is this meeting's a little bit early, so
No.
hey Matt.
Hey.
Um, okay, so these are the use cases. So, and then some of these are involving like the SDLC graph, right, Jordan? Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
okay. Um, so I think what we need to do is assess the current state of what we have, um, what it would take to get to the knowledge graph as a service, and then I'll kind of break down what my plan is for the SDLC proposal, which I hope to get in hopefully by tomorrow or by the next day in all the research Dimitri and I have been working on, so that we can kind of go from there and get any feedback. Um, but let me add some links. Jordan, I'm kind of taking, Dimitri and I were working and kind of taking the use cases that you have and just preparing a Google Doc. This is super early, so it's like very much in draft.
Okay, understood.
We were just working on it. Give me a second. Um, okay, so very much early. Let me just delete some stuff that oops. Um, put this link here. So what we were doing, Dimitri and I, we were just translating these use cases into like basically more of an executive summary for how we can do the knowledge graph as a service. Um, and this is more of our North Star. Let me put draft at the top. Um, And this is also what I'm going to be meeting with, because Tim wanted me to meet with Nitin about this, on like how we can actually enable this. And so we start with the use cases, essentially. The plan is to start with the use cases that we went over, Jordan, and engineer the architecture to those use cases, essentially, to make them answerable. Um, and so I have the architecture is in draft right now, but I don't want to publish it until it's fully ready and the different options. Essentially, we're going to have three options for the architecture, but we don't have to get into that right now. I guess the main thing we need to do first is assess where we are at with the current code graph, with assess also the current architecture for the code indexing for knowledge graph deployed, especially now that Jan is leaving, right? We have to figure out the drivers of that and what we can A, accomplish before GA, and B, what is going to be required resource wise to get there, right? Because when I discussed with Bill in Utah, the main best way of putting this, the main interest is actually getting this as a service so that we can actually generate revenue from it, right, Jordan? And that's from my discussions with Sarah, you pretty much the number one goal now that we have like this base graph, right? The community edition. Is that a adequate assessment, Jordan, from what you also understand?
Yeah, I think this is the sequencing we wanted.
Okay.
So absolutely.
Quick question for you, Jordan and Angelo. I see the use cases here. What are the top three? Are the top three security vulnerabilities, issue creation, and deep research agent? What are the top three here that are highly monetizable? Which three are you guys betting on out of the five?
Yeah, I think that, Angela, I need to read the doc that you just linked. I recognize it's like in progress.
Yeah.
I think that Mav, an initial discussion around this, kind of step one to me was like focus on enhancing basically like the server side flows that exist. It's basically taking the concept of what's running locally and just applying it server side as like a big value proposition into agent platform. Like just say, here's a task, like go do it. And it needs to have better context than like kind of the basic searching that it's doing today. But then quickly expanding that into like the rest of the SDLC object. So I think as like this impact analysis is a perfect canonical example of like connecting the code into epics and issues. So those are probably like the top two that come to mind.
Got it, got it. And I'm thinking about this through a different lens now. So we know from an architectural standpoint what parts we need to do to make it better as a system. What I'm asking is your view on what customers believe are the best use cases. So there are 5 or 6 of them here, but if you had to prioritize them, how would you prioritize them? Forget about the architecture for now. Let's think more about
That
it.
was my response. It was totally orthogonal to the architecture.
Got it, got it. Okay.
I think the architecture is important, but I was not trying to use
Oh, okay. So that was the response. Sorry. I got you.
Yeah.
Got you. Okay. So that response was in the context of what customers desire. Thank you, Jordan. That makes sense.
Yeah, you bet.
Gotcha.
And those two were that you said, Jordan, it was the server side, enhancing all the current flows, and what was the other one, security vulnerabilities? Is that the other thing?
I would characterize it. I thought of this. First is just code. It's basically just applying, making available what is happening locally server side, and then connecting code into issues, MRs, and epics, basically like impact analysis. And then probably the third is around the security vulnerability analysis that I'd like have to think really hard about, like what is really 3, but like I welcome input if y'all have different, if you have counter thoughts.
No, Jordan, that's exactly what. So if you look at the knowledge graph as a service draft, that's what I took those use cases that you were talking about, and I just put them in a little bit more general form.
Yeah.
And you can see, like, if you go over, so basically, knowledge graph as a service, there's the code portion, and then there's ingesting the data, right? We have already kind of done that before when I built the POC with the deep research agent, where we were indexing epics issues into the knowledge graph, into a knowledge graph, right? And then traversing them with that deep research agent POC. So let me link you that. So the code for that is already written, which is going to be part of like the architectural proposal. Let me link it to the meeting. So this is very much like, I think the number one, like the issue to MR flow would be a concrete usage of it, right? But if we design the service in a way where you can ask, where you can do a query, for instance, that says, give me issue down to line of code, that enables not just issue to MR flow, but many other use cases, right? Like you can think of it as, and so that's why we kind of, Dimitri and I were thinking we could call it like complete impact analysis, right? Or some type of larger use case, right? That involves issues, SDLC items like issues, MRs, and code. Like you can start with those simple three. And then the second one was the vulnerabilities, like what we talked about, basically leveraging those SDLC items and connecting them. And then in one graph query, you can find all the usages of log4j, just like we did in the demo, right? And so there's going to be different ways we can get there. That's what I need to actually have written down, which I haven't gotten to. Well, I have it written down. I just don't think it's presentable yet. And that's what Dimitri and I have been researching on, is basically how we can ingest that data with the current architecture that we have and what modifications need to be made to it to actually ingest that data. But I think like the most immediate thing right now is to figure out like how can we get the indexing, the code indexing deployed as a service, right? That was the priority, Jordan. Like the first step is what you were saying.
I defer to you all as the experts, but I assume that is like prerequisite to unlocking any of these use cases. So yeah.
Yep. Dimitri, did you feel any differently?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's our priority, and I think we will spend the next milestone or so to actually deploy it as a service and enable it to work in production.
And we should link the architecture document for that, right?
Can I ask the provocative question that's like the last checkbox? The
Yep.
first leadership question will be like, so how do you feel about the GA timeline? So I just wanted to kind of pulse check with you all, acknowledging that it's early. What's your how do we want to think about like readiness for DAP GA?
For knowledge graph or
For like a server side one, and there's like probably a spectrum of options. I don't want to speak for y'all. It's like, hey, it's way too aggressive, it's a stretch goal, we'll try, or like absolutely we can do it. And I just wanted to get a gut check on y'all's thoughts.
this is what I can be confident that we can get the code indexing with the current team we have. If we have like are allowed to do have the bandwidth for it, we would need to shift some priorities to getting more hands on the getting the deployed knowledge graph up and running, right? Because right now we have some people focused on indexing in the code indexing, right? But Dimitri and I can definitely kind of pick up the slack that Jan is leaving for the stuff that he was driving. And we also have Omar as well to help out with the server side bits. We already have most of that work scoped out. I'd like to clean that up a little bit, if that's okay with you guys. I think it's a little bit not as centralized as I'd like it to be, how we kind of did with 18 dot, with all the local version stuff. And so that's my thoughts on how we can get it going, is basically get it a little bit more cleaned up and this is all stuff that I'm planning on doing anyways for the SDLC architecture proposal, but basically have Dimitri pick up lead on the server side bits, and I support where needed, and we get the team kind of rallied around that effort and getting it deployed and have support in that way. That would be my suggestion.
Angelo, Dimitri, do you need more support on the server side?
I'll let Dimitri go first.
I would say that for code indexing, we should have enough resources, but if we're talking about SDLC data, I think it might be not enough.
And who
Yeah.
can, Matt, any thoughts on who we can reach out to potentially tap into some more resources?
Yeah, there's probably some people on code creation team that can help out. I also was talking to Tim about, and I think Angelo made a mention to this about working with Nitin and the data team, and
I think that's a great idea.
they potentially could help. I think that a lot depends on the type of architecture we're going for here, and I think that needs to be a bigger discussion around. Can we do some kind of on-the-fly querying, like the Angelo's POC for the deep research agent? I think we'll have to think hard about how we want to index SDLC data, because it's a whole different beast, I think, than the code.
Makes
The
sense.
code indexing.
Makes sense. It sounds, Angelo, you're meeting with Nityan today, yes?
Yes. Yeah.
Might be a good idea to start to pick his brain on individuals that can be tapped into, even if they're not going to be tapped into right now.
Immediately. Yeah.
But it's time to potentially forge those relationships. And I know Matt has it on our end, meaning finding some bits on our end, but I think it's time for us to start forging those relationships. So, and you're meeting with him today, right?
Yes. And the main goal here is, like, Dimitri and I have done a ton of research on how we can make the SDLC graph architecture possible, but we definitely need a second opinion from Nityan's team, for instance, right, on any gotchas, right? So if we go ingesting the SDLC data into the knowledge graph route, what are the gotchas going to be? And so with this architectural proposal plan, my plan for this is to give the team 3 options, essentially. Those options are going to be indexing on the fly, building a query layer into Rails, or ingesting the SDLC items into the knowledge graph. And Dimitri can clarify, there's going to be, in each of those categories, there's their own architectural paths, if you will, essentially.
That makes sense. Just a suggestion, make sure that when you provide those 3 options at the top of those, whatever you do, provide one pro and one con so that it frames it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there will be trade-offs for each. Dimitri, do you want to add anything?
I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and there's a lot that goes into each one of them, right? So security wise, for the 3rd option, we need to ensure Dimitri has a ton of experience with this, so that's why he's been an amazing resource. Security wise, we need to ensure that we're not, letting people access data they can't access. All of those things need to be covered completely. So those are the things that we're working through.
And also, if there are
Yes.
pros and cons that may not be architectural, that might be on the customer side, try
Yes.
to surface those as well so that Jordan can make some decisions as well.
That's what Jordan and I are also talking about. The indexing on the fly, right? Remember, we were talking about if we index on the fly, the user has to wait essentially until the indexing is done. There's pros and cons to all of them. Yes, those will all be part of it. But I guess the most immediate, like this meeting is for at least for 18.5. I think based on what I've heard from Jordan, right? Our focus should be getting his puppy up and running in the cloud. Is that is that the assumption?
Yeah.
Okay. So and we already have the architecture blueprint for that. We have some of the work planned out for that. So I think if we can clean it up and make it a little bit more cohesive and get the team rallied around it, that would be great. And also regarding the deployment, this applies to whatever architecture we pick for the SDLC stuff. We need to figure out how to get it deployed to self-managed as well. And Dimitri and I are going to Frankfurt in October, so we can figure that out. So that's going to be covered with the delivery team and Stan and a few other people. So that's the other missing piece that leadership is going to want to know about. Like, how is this going to work on self-managed? And then with the architecture proposal for SDLC, just other few things. I met with usage-based billing. And we have a meeting with next week with them, Jordan. So I'm just covering all bases. If we want to, it's up to you guys, right, on what we want to do for pricing and for monetization. I'm just making sure that's covered, right? So like if you're like, hey, we want to charge by API call, can we plug into the existing customer dot architecture, right? And so I met with Vitaly from the usage-based billing team, and it would look similar to AI Gateway, but our service is stateful. So for the self-managed, it's going to be a little bit more complex if we want to do instrumentation. So those will be some minor things we'll need to figure out. Dimitri probably knows what I'm talking about. It can add details there, but that is one of the other things that we need to do. Other piece is with the current architecture, and I wanted to raise this. I think this will be very beneficial with the mini tech summit. There's a bunch of questions on here that I don't know if they are answered or not. Mini tech summit questions. And these, I think we need to have as part of the cleanup, Dimitri, if you're cool with this, I think we should go through each one of these questions and answer them in the context of knowledge graph, because some of them are unanswered. Because again, I've been purely focused with the team on the local code graph, right? So we haven't. Now that I'm fully paying attention to the deployed version, there's some stuff that I think is unanswered. And it's if you look at and if you think there's some stuff there's some stuff on here that's definitely been answered. But if you look at the mini tech summit questions here, stuff like we need to figure out observability, right?
That's going to be really, really key, Angelo, specifically when you start to engage with our usage team. So yeah, that's going to really, really be, let's talk about that later. I don't want to derail this meeting, but
Yeah.
observability has to be more dynamic than just figuring out ways to make sure that we are surfacing errors and capturing usage for customers. We've got to really think about observability in a little bit of a different way so that when billing happens, we have a clear line of sight on what we're tracking, what we're measuring,
Yeah.
and that it's documented a certain way. But you and I can chat about that later.
Yeah. Things like open telemetry, right? I don't think we've covered that, right, Dimitri, yet. I think we need like a new issue on that. Talk through that. Centralized logging, right? You don't have that. We have logging. We have a logger in place that Bogdan has built, of course, but needs to be applied to the server. So all those minor details are actually, in my opinion, very important that we need to just start thinking about now. for 18.5, but yeah, that's basically kind of what I wanted to go over is like kind of more of the immediate things as Dimitri and I kind of work through the SDLC stuff and get some consultation from other people, and then we can propose it and let the team decide what's the best path forward for getting the SDLC data indexed. It's all possible, right? It's just making sure we do this correctly. That's the main thing that I'd like for us to work through. Any questions, concerns? Yes, no, maybe. Jordan?
Not for me. No, this has been, I think, good, helpful discussion. Hopefully pulled everyone forward to like other side meetings we've had along the way.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, it's been hard juggling both, but now I'm like a little bit more free. So we can focus on this. Dimitri, is there anything that you wanted to add?
Maybe to touch up on the GA question. I think we've been changing the definition of GA several or lately been changing it. Recently, we've introduced something like prep process for GA. So I think all of these changes might delay when we reach GA, but I think limited availability we might be able to reach it much sooner.
Oh, you're saying like labeling the knowledge graph service as GA.
Yeah, I think that was the question from Jordan.
Yeah, I would agree. I wouldn't label whatever we put out in the past in the next month or two as GA.
And I think
don't
that's
know.
that's not even really possible because of all these processes we have to follow to call it GA.
Yes.
I think that's totally reasonable. I think, forgive me if I didn't phrase my question clearly enough. I was more thinking probability that we have something that we feel confident in by the time Duo Agent platform goes GA, which may or may not mean that Knowledge Graph is declared GA, but like, hey, if there's a beta or whatever, server side can be used, can be invoked via Duo Agent platform server side. That's totally okay if it's not GA. So my apologies if I just threw around the word GA and didn't specify what I was talking about.
No worries.
That's something we can work towards for sure. Getting what we have locally toward like on .com. Definitely.
That's excellent.
And I think we can piggyback back on a lot of things we have for Zookt already. Because right now we plan it to have a separate stateful set, but in the same Helm chart. So it's, I think, a huge shortcut that would allow us to deploy it much sooner. Without it, I think we will need to wait at least 2 or 3 milestones to deploy a completely new service to production.
Definitely. Sounds good.
Okay. Yeah, excellent. Anything else before we wrap up?
No, that's it. I think we're a little bit over, so that's it on my side. Just stay tuned. Dimitri and I will put out something very shortly for everybody to go over. Anything from you, Matt?
No, just thank you
Okay.
both.
Okay. Sweet.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Take care.